Have you ever wondered why history's smartest people keep falling for the same financial traps? From 17th century Dutch tulips to 21st century cryptocurrencies, the greatest minds, the most sophisticated financial systems, and yes, even you and I keep dancing to the same destructive rhythm. What if I told you that every financial crisis in history isn't actually about money, markets, or math? It's about something much deeper, something hidden in plain sight within your own psychology. When we look at the world right now, it feels chaotic. Inflation running rampant, housing prices that make no sense, cryptocurrencies that promise millions before collapsing overnight, and experts constantly warning about the next financial meltdown. You feel it every day at the supermarket, at the gas pump, in your investment accounts. That underlying anxiety about money that's always there. We're told to diversify, to save more, to find better investments. But what if all these solutions are missing the fundamental problem? In my research into the greatest financial disasters of the past 400 years, I discovered something remarkable. Whether it was the tulip mania of 1637, the Great Depression of 1929, or the 2008 housing crisis, they all followed the exact same psychological blueprint. Today, I want to take you on a journey through these financial catastrophes, not to talk about economics, but to reveal the universal human pattern that created them, and more importantly, how understanding this pattern can transform not just your finances, but your entire relationship with wealth. The Roman philosopher Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." This profound insight perfectly captures our relationship with financial markets. Every boom and bust cycle in history has been driven not by rational economic forces, but by an emotional pendulum that swings violently between two extremes: greed and fear. What Seneca understood 2,000 years ago is that the greatest danger to our wealth isn't external markets. It's our inability to recognize when our emotions are making our decisions for us. The philosopher Nassim Taleb calls this the ludic fallacy, our tendency to mistake the controlled environment of our models and predictions for the chaotic reality of the real world. We create simplified financial maps that ignore the territory of human emotion. This philosophical lens changes everything about how we should approach wealth building. Because if financial crises are fundamentally psychological rather than economic, then the solution must begin within our own minds. Let's start by looking at what happened in the 17th century Holland with the famous tulip bubble. At the height of tulip mania, a single exotic tulip bulb was worth more than an entire house. People mortgaged their homes and liquidated their life savings to speculate on flowers. Now, most of us hear this story and think, how ridiculous. Those poor deluded Dutch people in their funny hats. I would never do something so foolish. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The Dutch weren't stupid. They were highly educated, sophisticated traders who ran the world's most advanced financial system of their time. These were the equivalent of today's Wall Street traders and tech investors. What they fell for wasn't a flower. It was a story about transformation and identity. Owning rare tulips in 17th century Dutch society wasn't just about the flower, it was about who you became when you owned one. Elite, sophisticated, successful. Sound familiar? This is exactly what happened with Bitcoin, NFTs, meme stocks, and countless other recent investment frenzies. We don't invest in assets. We invest in stories about who we'll become if we own them. The first step toward financial wisdom is recognizing that there is nothing new in financial markets. The technologies, the assets, the terminology may change, but the fundamental human psychology remains identical. Ask yourself, in what areas of my financial life am I chasing novelty rather than timeless principles? Where am I confusing the packaging for the substance? Now let's examine the 1929 stock market crash that triggered the Great Depression. In the 1920s, Americans were flush with optimism after winning World War I. The economy was booming, and people wanted a piece of this prosperity. But most couldn't afford to invest significant amounts in the stock market. Enter margin trading, the ability to borrow money to invest, putting down just 10% and borrowing the other 90%. This created a tremendous sense of opportunity. Suddenly, everyone could participate in the market's seemingly unstoppable rise. When the market eventually turned, as markets always do, these investors faced margin calls, demands to repay their loans immediately. With no cash available, they were forced to sell their investments at catastrophic losses, amplifying the market collapse. This exact same pattern repeated in 2008 with mortgage-backed securities. Banks created complex financial instruments that were essentially bets on bets on bets, all resting on the assumption that housing prices would never fall. Here's the philosophical insight. Leverage is a magnifying glass. It doesn't just amplify your returns, it amplifies your psychology. When things go well, it feeds your overconfidence. When things turn, it transforms normal fear into panic. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught that wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. Yet, our financial system is built on the opposite premise, that we should want more than we can afford and borrow the difference. The most dangerous leverage isn't financial, it's psychological. It's the gap between the life we can afford and the life we believe we deserve right now. Ask yourself, where in my life am I using financial leverage not because it's strategically sound, but because I'm impatient for results? What psychological leverage am I placing on myself? The third pattern I discovered is what I call the herd paradox. In both the tulip mania and the 2008 housing crisis, people made investments not because they understood the value of what they were buying, but because they saw everyone else doing it. As humans, we're hardwired to look to others for guidance on how to behave. This makes perfect evolutionary sense. Following the group helped our ancestors survive. But in financial markets, this instinct becomes deadly. The paradox is this: the more people who believe something is a good investment, the more likely it is to be overvalued. Yet our instinct is to feel safer when everyone agrees with our investment choices. The 18th century philosopher Bernard Mandeville captured this in his Fable of the Bees, showing how societies oscillate between periods of virtue, saving, moderation, and vice, speculation, excess. These cycles aren't unfortunate accidents. They're built into our social nature. Warren Buffett expressed this perfectly. Be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful. This isn't just clever investing advice. It's profound psychological wisdom about resisting our herd instincts. The true millionaire mind understands that financial independence begins with intellectual independence. The ability to think clearly when everyone around you is intoxicated by narrative. Ask yourself, what investments am I currently holding primarily because everyone knows they're valuable? Where am I confusing popularity for value? The final pattern behind every financial crisis is what I call the reality distortion field, our remarkable ability to ignore warning signs that contradict our desired reality. In the 2008 housing crisis, an entire ecosystem of experts, bankers, regulators, rating agencies, economists convinced themselves that housing prices could never significantly decline nationwide. This wasn't just wishful thinking. It was systemic self-deception. The philosopher Hannah Arendt wrote about the banality of evil, how ordinary people can participate in terrible systems not through malice but through thoughtlessness and conformity. Financial crises reveal the banality of delusion, how intelligent people can collectively believe absurdities when incentives align. In every bubble, there are voices of reason warning about unsustainable valuations. These voices are systematically marginalized, ridiculed, or ignored. Not because their arguments are weak, but because acknowledging them would require painful changes to our behavior and expectations. The ancient Greek philosopher Diogenes walked through Athens carrying a lit lamp in broad daylight, claiming to be looking for an honest man. In financial markets, we need more people willing to shine lights on uncomfortable truths, even when everyone else is enjoying the darkness. The millionaire mind is not one that avoids all risk. It's one that ruthlessly distinguishes between price and value, between narrative and reality, between what we wish were true and what actually is. Ask yourself, what financial beliefs do I hold that would be painful to reconsider? What warning signs might I be ignoring because they contradict my desired future? We began this journey by asking why history's smartest people keep falling for the same financial traps. Now the answer should be clear. Because financial crises aren't failures of intelligence, they're failures of wisdom. Intelligence helps you understand complex financial instruments. Wisdom helps you understand yourself. Intelligence sees patterns in market data. Wisdom sees patterns in human behavior, including your own. Intelligence helps you make money in the short term. Wisdom helps you build wealth that lasts. So where does this leave you? With a profound choice. You can continue playing the same game as everyone else, chasing returns, following trends, being driven by fear and greed, and accept that occasionally you'll be swept up in financial disasters beyond your control. Or you can cultivate a millionaire mind, not just focused on accumulating money, but on developing the psychological sovereignty that is the foundation of true wealth. Remember what Seneca taught us. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. The greatest financial risks you face aren't in the markets, they're in the mirror. Developing a millionaire mind doesn't mean you'll never make financial mistakes. It means you'll make your own mistakes rather than blindly repeating the mistakes of the crowd. You'll fail better, learn faster, and build more resilient wealth. The financial crises of the past weren't just economic events, they were psychological tests. And when the next one comes, as it inevitably will, the question isn't whether your portfolio will be prepared, but whether your mind will be. I'm curious, which of these 4 psychological patterns resonated most with you? The illusion of novelty, the leverage trap, the herd paradox, or the reality distortion field? Let me know in the comments which one you recognize in your own financial thinking. If you found value in today's philosophical approach to wealth building, make sure you're subscribed to Millionaire Brain. We're building a community of people who understand that financial freedom begins with mental freedom. And if this perspective shifted something in your thinking today, hit that like button. It helps others discover these ideas and supports the channel's growth. Remember, your greatest financial asset isn't your bank account, your investments, or your income. It's your capacity to think clearly when everyone around you cannot. See you in the next video.